Hold on, it's going live. Okay, so I'm Melissa Cordier.
I'm Madison Adams.
Terry, do you want to? And then we have Terry Huggins. Is it Huggins?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Terry Huggins. I live down in Gilbert.
Perfect.
Yeah, we kind of know each other, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Okay, so the first question is, Dr. George Will discusses many important topics. Choose one that you are personally interested in understanding, and then research. Okay. Oh, wait, did I get that wrong?
You have it right.
Is that
You're
the
right.
right questions?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
Isn't it?
yeah, okay. So the first one is, I guess the one that we've researched. So, like, why did the government get involved in this issue? How has it been effective? What has been the results? Based on George Will's speech, what could the government be doing right now to help this situation more effectively? So we'll start with those.
Okay. You want to go? You want to go, Madison, or do you want me to go?
I can go.
Okay.
Well, for the other discussion board, I researched the homeless, but I don't think that really applies to his speech. I don't think he mentioned the homeless, did he?
Well, he didn't, but you're right. I mean, he's talking about all kinds of topics. Personally interested in understanding and research. Yeah, he didn't, but that's okay. I think the homeless is a great topic. You want to go with it?
Sure. So,
Let's go with it.
anyway, so the United States has more homeless people than any other developed Western nation, and so the government is trying to help that, and so they're trying to do things such as having government subsidize and things. But as far as with the nation being in so much debt, like he did talk about, they're kind of borrowing money to subsidize this housing and stuff that they don't actually have. And so it kind of goes along with that whole mindset that America has right now. Some people who are homeless, not all, a lot of them aren't, but some people who are homeless are that way because they haven't developed the mindset of using their resources wisely, and the government is kind of feeling that as well. They're like, here's something for nothing, and they don't really have the resources to give that out. I guess you kind of apply what he was saying to it.
Right.
So it is helpful for a lot of people, and government subsidized housing, a lot of people are able to live somewhere where they wouldn't be in other situations, but there are also other ways that the government could help solve that problem.
Did Terry, can you go over like the things like he talked about in that video again? Because to be honest, I didn't take notes.
Okay. Well, there was a tremendous amount. And by the way, Madison, when you're talking, I'm having to do this on my phone, and I'm taking notes on my computer, but I can't hear you as well. You're a little softer on your voice. Can you just talk a little louder for the old guy?
Yeah, sorry about that.
I got you, but it didn't allow me to leave my hand free. I was typing your comments in. But okay, so one of the things he was talking about at the beginning is he was talking about cognitive dissonance. Did you hear him say that?
Yeah.
And he was just saying, look, it means that we're not using our brains at all. We have no clue what we're actually doing. And so then he used something, he said, decadent democracy. You remember that at the beginning? And so, Madison, you just talked about that. What he said was that we used to borrow, the government used to borrow from the future. That when they needed help, they were borrowing money from the future instead of for the future. Now, you know what? I just said that wrong. Okay. The government used to borrow for the future. They would try to make sure they're taking care of their debts and everything so future generations wouldn't get stuck with it. Now what we're doing is the government is actually borrowing from the future. So in other words, your generation is up a creek.
Yeah.
Hopefully you laughed at that, but you probably should cry because that's actually what's happening is that we continue to borrow money at such an unbelievable rate that we're taking it away from future generations. So there are 49% of families now receive government assistance. And maybe that kind of goes along a little bit about the homeless, what you're talking about, because it's basically, we're referring to the welfare system, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. So, and is there an answer to that particular question, Madison? From a police officer standpoint, most of our homeless, there is some degree of mental illness now. And it's kind of like, what came first? Did the drugs cause the mental illness? Did the living on the street have the mental illness already there, and then they started using? Because there's a tremendous amount of alcohol and narcotic abuse with them too. So maybe part of that answer is, the government. It's the second question is, has it been effective, and what have been the results? And we can't say that we're effective at all in dealing with our homeless situation, as evidenced by the fact that you said that we have more homeless than any other country in the world. That sound right?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I'll present a second one, a different part to that question, and I would tell you that what the government is continually talking about, and certainly our Democratic candidates is saying, is that we need police reform, that the police are killing innocent people, etc. Even though there's no proof of that whatsoever. I'm starting to laugh now. I mean, that's just hysterical when I always hear these things. But the government and Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders is saying, hey, and the reason they're saying that we need to change the police, the law enforcement system, is because they're trying to get the votes of the very poor black and Hispanic voters that they feel are being subjected to police abuse. Okay? That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does it? Okay. Well, and I mean that when you're seeing almost about every couple of weeks you're seeing something that, oh my gosh, this police officer did this or this. It's first of all, you're seeing like less than 1% of all. Heck, what am I saying? You're seeing less than 0.001% of police interaction with people. And so here's one isolated incident, and then the second part is you're not getting the facts, which is when they finally do bring the facts to the cases, then nothing happens. So I guess maybe I'm kind of preaching about the same stuff I've talked about in numerous things, but anyway, that's the big thing the government is saying. The government is saying that they need to change the police culture, and they need to do the training and all this stuff. And at least for people in law enforcement, we're laughing because they know nothing about the job or how it works. To give you one little example, as far as they're concerned, you should just be able to talk to people and they'll do what you say. And that's not the case when people are either impaired or they're criminals. You have to fight them. So has the government been effective in that, and what have been the results? The government actually has nothing to do with it, and law enforcement won't let them. Law enforcement already is doing the job they're supposed to do, and they do it right. So they kind of, I guess I would tell you, like in the city of Mesa, the government, the local mayor, a couple times has said, we're going to step in and make the police department run this way. And the police department has basically said, you don't really know how this works, and so you're not going to. How's that sound? Does that sound like fun? They're telling the mayor, guess what? I know we work for the mayor, but mayor, you do your job, we'll do our job, and we'll take it from there. So there's a couple of examples from that. I don't know if that also helped, Melissa, but at least at that beginning part there, that's one of the things he was talking about. Is that
yeah, well,
go ahead.
Well, no, I was just thinking about what Madison was saying, and then because I guess I didn't really go off of what he was discussing. I just chose a topic to.
Oh, that's fine. Should. Well, he didn't. I don't think he actually discussed particular concepts other than, of course, the budget and how we're in debt.
Right.
So I think the question is open-ended, so you can pick a different subject somewhat, but it's still the same idea. Right. Is the government, they know what they're doing? Are they doing it right? And etc. So go ahead. I'll start typing about your question.
Well, Well, I'm gonna just kind of do what the one that I did for the discussion board was I looked into children with disabilities, and I did that. Well, I chose that one because like it just interests me, and I took a special education class last semester, and so so before the government got involved, like the kids that had disabilities were segregated. They weren't like really allowed in the classroom. They were basically an outcast. And then they had an Education for All Handicapped Children Act that came out. And so basically it was like all the children that had a disability, they like had to get education. Like you couldn't deny them it. So the government they did step in, and I feel like that has been effective. And so, I mean, I guess the results now are that the children can all have education. But then Sister Colby asked me, like, do you feel there's enough funding to schools in assisting them to meet the needs of children with disabilities? And I don't really know. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't really know if there's enough, but I feel like it was good on the government's part for kind of stepping in and saying we have to have them be educated as well. So that's what I kind of researched on.
For what it's worth, I think that on that subject, it's kind of state to state. Depending on the state that you're in, will determines how much funding is actually there.
Right, right.
My sister-in-law that has Down syndrome, and the state of Texas really does a tremendous job helping them. So, but the thing people don't know is that if you have too much money, that's, again, here we are. So then if you do, then the government will step out and not help take care of them. So
Right.
it's always this catch-22. If you make too much money, then you end up paying so much more money into things. And of course, that's one of the things George Will was talking about, is we've set up this society now that people are going, if I work, then I make too much money, or if I, it's easier for me not to do anything.
Right.
He talked about that entitlement subject before there. So, did you get a kick out of that one thing he said about Medicaid? He said he's 72 years old, and he got his Medicaid card.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Okay, great. So all that means, George, is now we're going to send the bill to your children.
Right.
Now, the government's going to pay for it for you. That's true, but we're going to send it to your children." So. All right, I've been typing this stuff down there. Good, Melissa. And is again, so you think it's been effective to some degree?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think so. Yes.
I'd agree.
I like how you said how before they were kind of outcast and now they're not. So in that, I think it's effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there definitely has been really good results from it. I mean, I was just thinking about, I was like, I don't know what else. I mean, I guess they could do more funding. I was like, I don't know what else they could do. Yeah, I guess the funding is really the thing, like, that people are kind of fighting for, because they feel like they need more, like, assistive technology and things like that in the classroom. So, yeah, I think maybe that's the only. Yeah, but I think the government has done good about it.
And I think with that, there's not really any people abusing that, because, you either have a special need or a disability, or you don't, you can't really.
Right.
I don't think there's many kids that are faking that to get into those classes.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. No, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Did you research a topic? Well, no, you did. I saw you research a topic. Do you want to talk about yours, Terry?
Well, I did. Mine was law enforcement.
Okay.
How the government is trying to step in and change how law enforcement is done. And so the second part of that question is the government is not effective in it, because it's just things that they say that we need to change the culture of the police. because they're killing innocent people, etc. Remember that
Right.
part there? And in reality, the facts show they're not, and so it doesn't make any difference. They're just trying to get votes, and so the
Right.
government talks about it, but the people that already have their job secured in the Senate and the House of Representatives, they just kind of smile and go, "We probably should let them do what they do."
Right.
You remember Hillary Clinton? Do you remember her talking about how at these riot situations and Obama talks about this, that the police are wearing riot gear and they look like they're going to war, and it's like they want to change that because it's threatening to the people that are trying to hurt them. Yeah, hear how backwards all that is. That's why they're wearing all that, because people are trying to hurt them. So
Right.
you do wear riot gear for a reason. So anyway, that's just one example. So the government is not effective in that and will not be. In fact, they become reverse. Now police officers are not going into dangerous neighborhoods. They're going, forget it. I may have to shoot somebody. I'll never hear the end of it. So they're just, in Chicago alone, the black people are killing each other more at a higher rate than ever before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the officers are not going in there anymore. They're going, great. You want to complain about it and how we do it? Then have at it. Help yourselves. So that's what's happening.
Huh, that's interesting.
So it answers that question. That next question was based on George Will's speech. Is that where you're going to go with that, Madison?
Yeah, so it says Dr. Will cites a problem no one wants to talk about. With Bronfenbrenner's model, how is this issue impacting children and families, communities, and our nation?
Do you remember what the problem is that no one wants to talk about?
To be honest, I don't.
Okay, who is that? By the way, I've lost the picture even on my phone.
Oh,
So
that was Melissa.
okay.
But I don't remember either.
Okay. Well, what they're saying is the actual problem we're having is that this is the big one. He says that no one wants to talk about is the fact that let me see what my notes. I'm trying to remember in my brain. I want to say 40 years ago that, in fact, it was so long ago that he referred to them as Negroes, because that's how they were referred to back then, back in the 60s. So actually, 55 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
there was 43% of, and I wrote Negroes because that's what he said, but Negroes, do you two even know what Negroes are?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know because I'm thinking, heck, that was my generation. So
Yeah, that was
43% of
something
Negroes
Westward.
were having children out of wedlock.
Okay.
So he said, this is the problem that no one wants to talk about. Now 34% of our country, of Americans, are now having children out of wedlock.
Right.
He cited something like 72% of blacks and 54% Latin or Hispanics. And so, and then as a result, there's no fathers in the home, basically. And he's saying, and so his argument is, and it's probably pretty accurate, is there's not a male influence in the home teaching them certain things. And so we're raising this entire generations now for the last 40 years of kids that are growing up with no influence like that, and then they're not getting jobs and they're not working and so forth. We just moved somebody into our ward around the corner, okay? And the mom and her two sons just came, but she remarried.
Mm-hmm.
And literally it's like I can throw a rock and hit their house. So I went over to welcome them because the mom and the two sons just showed up. And the two sons, they're from Colorado. And she said she had to get them out of Colorado because all they're doing is smoking marijuana all the time. They don't do anything, they don't work because it's legal there. And she said, I have two sons who are returned missionaries, and my next two sons are just hanging out. So anyway, that was that. But part of the reason is because their father died about 5 years ago. So
Okay.
sorry, I should have tied that in. And as a result, she feels like, well, because she doesn't have that help in that priesthood in her home, then the next two sons have just kind of went south, including they're not handling that tragedy very well. But
Right.
result, that's what's happening. So that's what the problem no one wants to talk about is more than anything. It isn't just the financial situation in our country. It's the reason it's like this also is because we're having all these kids out of wedlock, and they're not being taught these. Let me put it. I'll put it this way. I'll give you what he wrote. He said they're not being taught the virtues that Americans have always been taught, which are thrift, industriousness, delayed or how do you put it? He said he didn't call it delayed gratification, but anyway, meaning wait until you earn the money and such before you're trying to get the things you want, and individualism. So that's how it ties in. He said they're not being taught these things.
Oh, okay. So
is there an answer to that question? You two what do you think? Is there an answer to how to fix that? Is the government going to be able to do it?
Well, I don't know.
I'll help. The government isn't going to do anything about that. People are going to keep having kids out of wedlock, and the government has nothing to do with it.
Okay, so the problem that he said that no one wants to talk about is how children they're having kids out of wedlock. Is that the problem?
Yeah, that's what he focused on specifically, and how it ties back into the fact that the government is having to pay for all this now.
Okay.
And just like Bernie wants you to have, hey, free education, free this, free that.
Right.
That's where we're at now.
So
Can we just
going with the question? Well, I think it's impacting it's impacting everyone because she asked how is the issue impacting children and families and communities in our nation, and I think just going along what Terry said, they don't have they're just relying on the government, and so it's just impacting every person. Basically, it's impacting the children that are that don't have a dad or So I just think it's impacting everyone. I don't know how else to say it. Kind of thing.
Okay.
So.
I think the government is trying to help these people. They're trying to help single moms with kids and stuff, and that's awesome. But in a way, they're kind of fueling it as well.
Yes.
And so they're doing more harm than they're actually helping, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You hit it right on the nose. By the way, it's doing more harm. Because I may even have said this before, but I've got a stepdaughter who just graduated from high school, and she's 18. She's never had a job. She doesn't have any interest in getting a job. Her dad gives her tremendous amounts of money, and she's heading to the University of Oregon soon, and she probably will never. I mean, she won't get a job unless she absolutely has to, and she just sort of lays around all day. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you don't have to go do it, the difference is, and by the way, we love her and we're trying to help, but there's nothing you can really do when the money's just given to people and given to her.
I think this issue, it's just making people lazy, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's just, what Madison was saying, it's not helping it. It's just making it worse, and it's just making people, I don't know, it's almost like they're not grateful, they're lazy, it's just kind of, it's just not right.
There's no incentive to go work if they'll just give it to you.
Yeah.
And then there are times when people do need help. Do you know how the church welfare system works?
Yeah, kinda, sorta.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty big question, but here in the nutshell is how it works. Somebody needs help and they need immediate help, and the church is going to say we're going to come in. We're going to come in and help them. But it's a short-term thing. The real thing is to get them back to work or whatever it is to get them so that they are self-sufficient, whereby then they'll have self-esteem, etc. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And we're raising literally generations now of people that are going, shoot, no. In fact, I saw something last week, and the woman was saying, and again, it's not about they're black or Hispanic. We have very poor white people too, etc. But as a black woman, and she was saying that the government now is only giving her $800 a month, and that ain't enough to survive on, and they need to give her at least $1,600, and they need to double that. And there was no concept there, well, I should work or anything. She's going, how are my babies supposed to survive on this kind of money? You're going, because you're supposed to get a job, kind of, or,
Right.
maybe your husband, except you don't have the husband. So anyway, it all ties back into that.
Right.
So pretty. Okay, you taking it, Matt, Melissa? According to Dr. Will, one thing you can do for your country. Is that our next question?
Yeah, so it says according to Dr. Bill, one thing you can do for your country is reserve a spacious portion of your life for which your country is not responsible. And then it goes on to say, do you agree with Dr. Will? In what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved and should not be involved in addressing your chosen threat to children and families?
Cool.
Yeah. Who wants to start?
I can start with that. I think that there's like so much in that. And I think a lot of us have the mindset of, oh yeah, we don't want the government involved in our lives, but we do when it comes to getting free stuff from them. But we don't want them to
Yeah.
decisions such as when it comes to the family, and we don't want them to control our education. We don't want them to control these things. But you look at what's going on in today's world right now, and Obama, just recently with transgender bathrooms, he just changed things in schools where he's like, okay, everybody has to allow everyone to enter into whatever bathroom they want. And this isn't something that we voted on. Gay marriage being legal, we were voting on this before, and then all of a sudden we didn't vote, and it became legal in our whole nation. And it's like, we don't like that the government's taking this power, because the government is taking power, and way more power than they're supposed to and than the Constitution grants them, because we are a democracy. But they're just taking that power and making these things law. But then at the same time, we fuel the government because we do, as a people, we like to leech off the government, and we're like, yeah, we want this more free stuff, we want this and this, but we don't want the laws and stuff. And so it's like we don't realize that it goes both ways, but it does.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, I think that makes sense, definitely. Yeah, I think going along with that, I think I totally agree with you, Madison, like how people just they like take it for advantage, like they take what they get for advantage almost. And I think like his quote, it's basically like you need to be responsible like for things in your life, like, and so because I think people now, they just like lean on the government, which some people do really need like help and assistance, which I understand. But I think there comes to a point where you do have to be responsible for it. And like Terry was saying, like you go get a job. Like you don't just like wait for the government to give it to you. So I feel, what he said, in what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved? Like, I think the government needs to help when people really need it, but it's almost like, I don't know where they need to draw the line. Like, there's almost needs to be a line, but like no one makes this line because they just keep giving it. Like, and so, yeah, so that's kind of what I got out of his quote. But yeah, I thought his talk was really interesting.
I'm right. I'm typing what you're saying. Draw the line. That's the gist of what Mr. Will is talking about. George Will is talking about. He's saying that the government has no idea where to draw the line. In fact, the government doesn't want there to be a line. The government wants to to tell you, look, we know what's best for you, and we will take care of you. We will take care of you. Here's a humorous note. Did you see the thing? I'm trying to pull up a note for you. There's two different pages. Wait a sec. Here it is, coming up. I really get a kick out of taking notes on these things. Do you remember the story about Ida May, the woman named Ida May, who received workman's comp, not workman's comp, Social Security? Did either one of you catch this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, well, they take Social Security out of my checks. Any job I've ever had, except for in law enforcement and firefighters, they don't take Social Security out. There's a reason for that. They feel that they're I don't know. It's a way of them of saying thank you for the dangerous jobs you do. So they don't take Social Security out. But if you get a check, you have Social Security taken out. This woman, Ida May, she put $22 of her money into Social Security when she was working. And then she retired, and when she was 65, she started collecting money. Well, she, according to George Willey, was humorously saying that she screwed up and lived to be 100 years old. So when she put $22 into the system, she got back $24,000 over the years. Any shock there from anybody? That's a pretty good return to your investment, huh? $22 in, she got 20 because she outlived how old she was supposed to live. She ended up getting $24,000. So they actually talked about how there was, at the time back then when she got this, there were 42 workers per every retiree. So if I retired, there was 42 of you to replace me, and so you were putting money back into the system, and so it was working out fine. Now there's only 3 workers per each person who retires. So almost you two and one other person, when I retire, you're putting money into the system, then I'm taking money out. So anyway, we're becoming very, very old, and where the healthcare system is keeping us alive. And extending lives, and I see that because I work with people that are incapacitated because of illnesses or age all day long. So anyway, that's just a side note for you that the system is broken. So that's what I'm trying to get at for you. George Will's trying to say to you, look, the government's trying to tell you we'll do everything for you, and the government doesn't know how to do anything right.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think
You remember saying that one?
benefits of Social Security. By the time we're that age, it's going to be gone. We won't have anything, but we'll pay into it.
Yeah, it's almost gone now. I won't turn 65 for 5 years, and I'm kind of wondering if there'll be anything left in it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Margaret Thatcher was? Prime Minister of Britain, he referred to? Margaret Thatcher said the sooner or later the problem with welfare and socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money.
And it's so true.
And they were referring to the income equality and stuff. So anyway.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone else wants to say?
Nope.
Okay, so we just need to do the 2-minute wrap up basically to go through what we talked about?
You know, our teacher probably should just listen to our whole conversation because we're kind of wrapping it all up across the whole way.
I know, that's how I feel too. Does anyone want to just kind of go through what we talked about?
Type it up for everybody, so I'll go ahead and just kind of wrap it up, okay?
Perfect.
And thanks for doing it the other weeks. It has been absolutely crazy, but now I guess got an anniversary to take care of this weekend, and maybe I'll get a break in the action here. I wonder if my wife heard that. That sounded negative, didn't it? Dr. Will discusses many important topics. Choose one that you're personally interested in understanding, then research the following. And Madison talked about the homeless, and the U.S. has had more homeless than any other nation, and we're a nation in debt, so the government is borrowing against the debt. And we even referred to, I kind of touched base on the fact that it used to be that the government was borrowing for the future, and now we're borrowing against the future. So it's just not working out. Melissa talked about children with disabilities and kind of felt like the government was doing a pretty good job with that, which I don't know if you see my my post on the other discussion board. That's kind of what I was talking about and agreed with you. I was talking about the fact that the government actually does a really good job with that. So, and then I talked about law enforcement and how the government wants to be completely involved in that. I hope that doesn't sound, by the way, like it's government or law enforcement is a runaway train and nobody is in charge of it. What I'm trying to share with the two of you is that that's a job that you actually have to do to understand it. And so it's really dumb when politicians are trying to say we're going to change law enforcement when they don't having an understanding of what it is. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Okay. And in other words, I don't know what two fields you two may want to go into, but I talked about my stepdaughter earlier. She's really good with a camera. Unbelievable. I wouldn't dare try to tell her how her camera works because I have no idea. So it's really kind of funny when government is trying to say, well, here's what we're going to do with law enforcement. So has it been effective? We kind of answered those two questions, or those questions about what have been the results when government steps into things.
Mhm.
Madison said not effective on her subject necessarily. Melissa said effective on hers, children with disabilities, and mine was not effective. What could the government be doing right now to help the situation more effectively? I don't think we really talked about that, but I'll just sum it up real quick. And according to Dr. Will, the government can't do anything to make things more effective. What did they have? 1,197 page report on what was it? What was the big thing? Remember the stack of papers he brought out, the report? Either one of you?
Vaguely.
Do you remember? Okay. I'm just trying to think what it was. My brain's slipping on it for a second, but basically it was saying he was giving the information. Do you remember maybe you don't remember, but he even said it had to do with the government and the borders and illegal immigration. That's what it was about. Okay? And he said that Nevada is a state that's on the border. It's a border state. Do you remember that everybody was laughing about that?
Mhm.
Okay, do you or don't you?
I remember.
Nevada is surrounded by other states. It's not a border state. So in this gigantic report, they don't even know that the people did it, don't even understand that Nevada is not a border state. That's pretty hysterically funny, but they wanted to make sure they got funding for a certain thing, so they had to claim that they were. So Arizona is a border state. We border Mexico. California borders Mexico. Utah is not a border state, so kind of funny. The problem that no one wants to talk about, we talked about that, and just the fact that he was really stressing children being born out of wedlock, and how even with our minorities, what a problem that is. So that was a big part, but also the real problem is, again, the economic situation that we don't really want to deal with or talk about, the fact that we're going into unbelievable debt. So let's see. I don't even know if we talked about Bronfenbrenner's model impacting children, families, communities in our nation. Did we?
We briefly, I think we just talked about how it impacted just all of those systems, basically, like it impacted it.
Okay. I'll put something in about that. And then the one thing you can do for your country is reserve a spacious portion of your life for which your country is not responsible. And Madison said we do not want the government involved in education. We don't want the government inflicting their views on education or even on the bathrooms, etc. So I put that in. Hopefully they'll get a kick out of that. Melissa was talking about being responsible for your own lives. The government should help, but where do you draw the line? And I added, that's what Dr. Will is saying, is the government has no idea how to draw the line. They want to be in charge.
Right.
And we don't want that, and that's not what the Founding Fathers ever said. They put all these checks and balances in place for a reason, so that government couldn't run our lives. Okay? By the way, do you agree with Dr. Will?
Completely.
Yeah.
Good, completely, and yes. And what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved and should not be involved in addressing your chosen threat to children and families? And we got some answers on that, and I'll type up some stuff. And I think we covered a lot, about 50 minutes, didn't we?
Yeah. Yep. All right, perfect. We will do this again